Right, if I could have your attention, please. We'll get this over as briefly as possible so that we can all get ready for the race. On today's program, we do have listed for a 2 laps warm-up. Do you want it? Yes. Well, that means that you're all going to have your bikes down to the starting positions ready at 11:45. The warm-up's 11:55, then you'll have a chance to refuel and have your bikes back to the start, or top up your fuel and have your bikes back to the start ready for the race start at 12:10.
Pre-race riders briefing was carried out by ACU steward Errol Colohan, race manager again for this year's Castrol 6-hour production motorcycle race. It's very important for riders to know exactly what is going on, what flags are being used, and also the refuelling procedure which is to be carried out in the pits, where many races have been won or lost.
This means that each team is in the same situation. You've all got 2 riders and 4 mechanics. Yesterday we had a problem with some people not quite understanding that, and there was about 15 guys on one bike when it came in at one stage. We will have people there watching you, and it may take them a while to sort out, who the extra people are, so beware. The start. The start of the race. The supplementary regs say we're going to start the 2 classes separately, but we will change that and start them all on the 1 flag drop according to your qualifying grid position. So the fastest qualifier, or your fast qualifying time, which will mean there'll be a few smaller bikes up with the bigger bikes and a few bigger bikes back to the smaller ones. Any more questions? Well, good luck. We'll see you all at about 6:30 after the presentations for a barbecue.
The start began at 6 minutes past 12. Pole position went to Australian Deal Chivas and Wellington rider David Hiscock. Chivas had set the time, but the first rider was former winner Hiscock. A brilliant run by the Wellington rider and an absolute perfect start saw him lead into the first turn. The order as they exited toward the S's was Dave Hiscock, Glenn Williams, Len Willing and Aucklander Paul Pavletich riding Kawasaki this year. After 8 laps, they were lapping riders round the tail end of the field, and with the race over 6 hours, qualifying times were being recorded during the opening laps. It was a blistering pace being set by former winner Dave Hiscock on the Suzuki GSX 750R. At this point, Hiscock was being followed by Robert Holden, who had never won the Castrol 6-hour race here at Manfeild, although having scored several victories prior to this. And it was Holden who predicted that the race would be run in a blistering pace, perhaps around the time set during the previous day's qualifying.
Low 15s, 15-1s, 15-2s for qualifying. I think that's basically what the race will be running today.
The race was being led by the 2 Suzukis ridden by David Hiscock and Robert Holden. Holden certainly piling the pressure on as they went into the 30-minute stage. He was beginning to make a move on Hiscock. In particular, Holden's advantage was noticed, particularly under braking at the end of the start-finish straight. Both bikes being relatively the same speed coming out of the turns, but definitely under brakes, Holden was beginning to close. As they approached the infield hairpin, Holden taking a much wider line than Hiscock, getting the slingshot off the bank corner and heading down the infield straight where he had Hiscock well and truly in his sights, moving over and taking him on the inside as they headed into the right-hander and into the back straight. Meanwhile, in third position, Australian Michael Dowson on the FZ750 Yamaha, and further back behind him, a tremendous battle going on between the two Kawasaki's ridden by Australian Len Willing and New Zealander Glenn Williams.
I think we've got a pretty good chance. Iain and I are both going pretty quick. Yeah. The main thing is we've got to keep going for the whole 6 hours. We just want to try and be real consistent over that time.
Pointing down at the fuel tank, advising his pit crew that he would not be far away from coming in for the first refuelling stop. Williams had gone through and immediately began to build up the lead. Last year's winner was Alan De La Tour of New Plymouth. At this stage of the race he was lying in 12th position, rode the Honda VF 1000. At the moment he was about to be lapped by the Australian Michael Dowson, who was lying in 3rd position. Dowson was very much on the pace, and it was unusual to see De La Tour so far back and being lapped at such an early stage of the race. Dowson, having just had a complete season in Australia where he was still around 1/3 the distance from the pits. Of course, not being allowed to receive any outside assistance, Holden began to wiggle the bike from side to side, trying to get the last few remaining drops of fuel to flow into the carburetors. He was still some 500 metres from the refuelling bay. Obviously, the aggressive pace in which he'd been riding at was certainly taking its toll, the bike not proving anywhere near as economical as what they'd planned. Headed to the pit area. And the well-trained crew went straight into action. His co-rider was fellow Wellingtonian Bob Toomey, very much an experienced production racer and former national championship holder. Holden assisted in the refuelling, the machines not being allowed to leave the pit area unless any fuel which has been spilled during the change has already been mopped up, obviously for safety reasons. Toomey headed through the mechanical pits, and of course all riders were very much aware of the strict speeds which had been set, obviously for safety reasons again. Exiting from the mechanical pit area and being waved back onto the circuit by the officials.
Bike's going really well. We just cut our fuel test a little bit close and ran out of gas in that last lap. I was supposed to come in anyhow, so I couldn't really put us too far behind. But I think we can make it up. The bike's handling really well. Really good actually. The temperature's not too hot, so it doesn't really stop it. But main problem will be about the 4-hour mark when things start to get a little bit slippier. But at the moment everything's looking really good.
Unlike the Hiscock Chivas entry, who had changed the rear tyre during their fuel stop, Bob Toomey was settling into the GSX 750R with a full tank of fuel on board and acclimatising himself to the circuit conditions. Very much to his liking, having been here last year. However, at this point, unbeknown to him, Robert Holden was about to lose the lead. Australian Michael Dowson had handed over to New Zealander Richard Scott, winner of the last 2 Australian Castrol 6-hour events.
145. The lead line comes in. Second lead, 5 seconds. Next to number 3, which is from
Expatriate New Zealander Iain had taken over from Glenn Williams on the Kawasaki GP Z900. They were still in 4th position, but however 1 lap behind the leaders. Still the leader, Sydney's Neil Chivas. Iain on the GPZ 900 Kawasaki was about to end his first stint, which put the race at 2 hours or 1/3 the distance. Patiently waiting in the pits was his co-rider and former national champion, Glenn Williams.
You've got to get yourself psyched up to get the hard part in the middle of a race is to everyone else out there is already going around at the right speed, and you've got to go out there after being sitting in the pits and get back to racing speed as soon as possible. It's pretty hard to do.
With the pit crew standing at the ready, Iain was on his way down pit lane. On to the jack, a rear wheel change. Some of the top riders electing to run a softer compound tyre, and in view of the advantages that can be picked up by way of reduced lap times with a new tyre on, it's well worth it. Pero was spraying CO2 onto the radiator of the Kawasaki, trying to eliminate the high engine temperatures which can be reached when the bikes are stopped for such a short space of time. A quick change and Williams was on his way.
There's a lot of traffic and it's holding up pretty bad. The pace is very fast. I tried to stay with Neil Chivas for a while, but he's going too fast.
Well, we've got 3 hours to go. At this pace, it's qualifying times.
Number 2 was Australian Michael Dowson. 3rd place sharing it with Richard Scott. We're about halfway through the race. Number 5 is the Australian Len Willing, who's in 5th position. Second position, Robert Holden. In amongst one of the junior class riders here who moves to the middle of the circuit, giving Holden room to go. And you can see the difference in speed between the two motorcycles. Robert Holden was desperately trying to make up time that he'd lost after running out of fuel in the first stage. Glenn Williams was eager on the day. He almost won the event last year and he was all set to make amends for this. But it's bad luck for Robert Holden. Again, they've run out of fuel. This time on the back straight, and it's a long way home. The riders not being allowed to receive outside assistance. They had obviously again underestimated the fuel consumption of the 750 Suzuki. Meanwhile, in the pits, a very anxious and concerned crew awaited Holden's arrival. Neil Chivas had been in to hand back over to David Hiscock, and again another new rear wheel and tyre was fitted to the 750. Chivas climbed aboard, Holden had taken a rest on the back straight, obviously feeling the heat and the exhaustion.
The people that are giving the hardest time is our teammates, Robert Holden and Bob Toomey. They just run out of gas, so I think they've done their race, so it might make things a little bit easier for us.
Toomey had been out to retrieve the bike, avoided fuel for the second time. This time it was their turn to change the rear wheel. And Robert Holden obviously feeling the effects of the long push all the way back, but however, in typical fashion, still retaining his sense of humour.
Our first gas stop was a minute 4 and it ran out, and we stopped at the hour every time after that. I must be a little bit less economical on the bike than Bob, and it just didn't even go the hour, 58 minutes and we ran out. The pace is really hard, but we've basically blown any chances we had. Like, we're still going to go for a finish, but I don't think we'll be anywhere near the top 10. That's us out really.
Bob Toomey was back on the bike and the lap times had shown that the new rear tyre was certainly making a difference. Prior to the start of the event, the Toomey-Holden combination was picked as one of the front runners as well. And Toomey was out to prove that his nomination again to ride with Robert Holden was certainly not a guesstimate. The backup lap scorers were a study of concentration throughout the 6 hours. Meanwhile, Phil Payne brought the Kawasaki into the pits to have the offending number replaced. This is always very strictly adhered to because of lap scoring. Obviously the team had been caught short with no replacement number, and the ever-ready tape was put to use. Errol Connigan, the ACU steward, wouldn't let them go until he was 100% happy with it.
The regulations state they've got to have 3 full number boards on them for them, throughout the race, and their number board had fallen off. They had to come in and put a new number board on. It means that the lap scorers don't have any trouble picking them up later on.
Number 7, David Hiscock, leading the 12th running of the Castrol 6-hour production motorcycle race at Manfeild. Iain Perro on the number 4 GPZ 900 Kawasaki, still very much on the pace and a very experienced endurance racer. Also Suzuki mounted on number 20 was Alan and Grant Ramage from the South Island. Both these riders with enormous production experience behind them and certainly with a brilliant future in front of them as far as production racing is concerned. Number 14, the all-out style, was Paul Pavletich from Auckland on the Kawasaki GPZ 900. However, it was for disaster for the Wellington team of Robert Holden and Bob Toomey. Holden had crashed coming to the approach of the S's and they were out of the race. Glenn Williams pitted. 3rd position overall. The CO2 again being sprayed onto the radiator to keep the temperature down. A well-calculated fuel stop, no new tyre, a full tank of gas, and Perro was away.
Yeah, we only had it's only about 45 minutes to go, I think, so we just had to top it up, and that was it. you're looking like you'll be at the prize winner there. Yeah, well, we haven't finished yet. It's a long way to go yet.
Toomey parked the bike, too badly damaged to continue with just 45 minutes remaining.
Another still 11. Yeah, I just until we had the problem like the fastest bike on the track who ran out of gas earlier on. I figured I could go faster than anybody else. I thought I might as well just stick at the pace. Front tyre just got a little bit too much, and I just came round and just lost the front. But that's that's the name of the game. Now I enjoyed myself out there. It was really good. There was no one out there we couldn't pick up or catch. So I had a ball. Put it about my new leathers.
Not hurt?
No.
And Chivas meantime was out in front, the race very much in control and circulating within the calculated times that they'd set previous. Pero in third position, being lapped by the race leader, and obviously just heading for the 6:06 finish. Second place. Into the final turn. Chivas is on with the brakes a little earlier, setting up a little earlier, and heading at the end of 6 incredible hours in brilliant temperatures under extreme competition. Neil Chivas took the checkered flag. And bike number 3, that's the Holden Toomey GSX 750R, being pushed over the line to be classified as a finisher. Pero number 4 in third position. And in second position, coming up to take the checkered flag, number 2 Michael Dowson from Australia. Neil Chivas acknowledging the plaudits of the officials as he makes his way down on the slow round lap. Chivas Hiscock first, Scott Dowson second, and Pero and Williams third.
I think we still could have done a qualifying time there. The bike's in such good condition. If we had to. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's very, very cold, so everyone's straight.